Right, how are we all doing, guys? Hope everyone is keeping well. Just want to have a little chat about burnout, because I think a lot of us, if not have suffered, have are experiencing it or about to, as the case may be. And obviously, I've just finished a 10-hour shift, so I'm ready for a wind down time. The one thing I've learned is that you need to wind down. And the problem with modern life and all the many distractions is that it's hard to get that wind down nowadays. I've had a burnout. I've had a couple. My last one, I'd been at work, most of the week. Well, I've been at work all the week, to be honest. And then I did a running event. And then, because of all the pressures and lack of time, I decided to come back and cut the grass. And I was just about to complete that when all of a sudden my brain just stopped. Literally just stopped. It was hard to even function. My partner, she was just coming back, and I was just stood there, and I just said to her, "Can you finish cutting this grass?" And she said, "Well, I've got this and that." And I said, "Look, I need to go in. And I went in, and I basically just climbed into bed, and I didn't eat or sleep for about 32 hours. I just couldn't function. Now, some of that is partly to do with the neurodiverse side, or the being neurodivergent, and part of that was the learning curve that you need to give your body time to decompress. And unfortunately, the modern world is making that more difficult. We're all pushed at work to work as hard and even harder than really the human body can. It can't keep it up. It can't keep doing it. And not just work. You come home nowadays, and not everyone, and I know this doesn't apply to everyone. These are my own thoughts, my own view of things. And then you come home and you've got other things to do, more emails to do. Some people do. People have got this to finish, that to finish. They've got kids to sort out, kids clubs to do, tea to make. Or countless times your phone will go off, messages. When do we actually stop? When was the last time you actually stopped? When was the last time you were actually bored to the point of where, it was because, you had nothing to do? I can't really remember that. We've just, I've had it myself, where you do a long shift, and then the concentration that I have to give my job, it tires you. And then you get asked if you can do a training course when you get home, because it's got to be done by a certain time. Again, there's no time to decompress. And I've learned myself that you've got to decompress. This drive home is actually, a good time to start relaxing or trying to switch off. Ignore that phone, because you shouldn't be touching the phone anyways. Ignore it. My watch, as I'm speaking, has gone a few times with notifications of something or the other, and I'm not even going to look, because it can wait. My health and myself, my well-being is more important, I'm afraid. And it's you've got to, we've, how can I put it? We've got to start, I actually get quite annoyed with myself a lot of the time, and this is why I'm wanting to, I can't get off the hamster wheel as such, but I can try and slow it down. And that is part of what this channel's about. It's about realizing that fact that you're in this spin, you're in this state of rush, this state of everything's got to be done, as soon as possible. Everything's got to be, we rush, I'll give you an example, and I've done these sort of things myself, where you've got an hour to go out on your bike or something, so you rush it. Well, what's the point of that? That's not relaxation. That's not enjoying your hobby. Everything's just, everything's twice as 3-4 times as fast. It's like driving home. Like this now, everyone's got to rush. When really we've done our day's work. We're going home. We should be going home to relax and not sit there scrolling through our phones. Phones to me, all right, good invention as such, don't get me wrong, but they need to be used as a tool. We need to learn to be, in the present more. Slow ourselves down. Don't always be rushing. I never used to read books, to be honest. I'm not a book reader. I'm not a reader, full stop. But I've learned to do that, because that is so much better than scrolling through whatever apps, how many times do you go to your phone and you think to yourself, oh, I must check that, and then as soon as you open your phone, you're distracted by how many different messages that are there. I do it. So again, all this fighting for your attention doesn't allow us to switch off. And if we don't switch off and we don't learn, and employers don't learn, another one of my little bugbears is breaks. A lot of people in reality, in the real world, do not get breaks anymore. They're working through them, or they're checking their phones for work emails, or they're checking, we're not getting the proper break. A break should be, my idea of a break is total my time, me time, nobody else's. If I want to go for a walk, I'll go for a walk. But half an hour dinner, it's not long enough. It really is not long enough. We don't decompress. And then, I get, by about 2 o'clock, I'm starting to flag. I'm starting to tire. So surely, employers' world, I'm just watching this traffic, by the way. There's one thing, I've got an ambulance. You'll probably see it in the mirror. Look at that. And that is an ambulance. Yeah? That is people that actually should have more thought about road things. And they're being a rush themselves. By the way, it's a patient ambulance. It's not an ambulance. But can you see where I'm getting at? That got to get out there, got to get on the road. But now it only can do 60 miles an hour, and now it's stuck out there, Now it's holding bits up. So what was the point of that, Where has that got you? Now I'm having to slow down because, I don't know. It doesn't get you anywhere. Relax. Learn to relax, because all you're doing is stressing yourself, and stress long term is not good for you. I've learned that. I have. And again, I'm not trying to make a point of this ambulance. I've just sat back. It's up the back of somebody else now. In fact, if I could be bothered, somebody like that wants reporting, to be honest, because they shouldn't be doing that job. And yes, I'm letting it go. I'm just sitting back, letting everyone else fight, jostle, because I want to arrive home, you know, in a more relaxed, peaceful state. I'll go through some of these topics actually a bit more in depth. But my point about burnout is you've got to learn to conserve that energy. You know, this world, modern world, it's not great. You know, it's not. You know, it is what it is though, and you've got to learn to cope with it. But what I will say is just learn to slow down. You know, employers need to stop this. You know, well, you did 10 emails today, so tomorrow you can do 15. And then when that person does 15, oh, well, now you can do 25 because you managed to do 15 before today. And they keep putting that pressure and that pressure on. And eventually people will just burn out. And you're not going to get the productivity, you know, out of that person at all. You know, you just, you know. I mean, look at some of these HGV drivers. If you are an HGV driver, you will relate to this. And hats off to you guys that do tramping like you do for 60 hours or whatever it is a week. How the hell you do that and don't burn out? You know, you get 8 hours off, a lot of you. 8 hours, and in that 8 hours you've got to eat and sleep. No, it's not good. It's not good. So anyways, I'm probably going to leave it there. I'm still just, you know, chilling out in this lane as we do. I'm going to be coming off shortly. But yeah, just that's just to touch on burnout. You know, if you can relate to it, you know, please let me know in the comments. Like I say, we're putting too much on ourselves these days, and others are putting too much on ourselves. We need more time to decompress. We need more time to relax. You know, we're fighting for that time. Okay, yeah, if you like it, please subscribe, all helps. And we'll catch you again very soon. Take care, guys.